it's such a tricky subject.
It is.
There's some people that don't have any financial understanding whatsoever.
Right.
And you ask them to say, well, if you're going to be faithful to your membership of the church, because again, it's a part of the vows, well, then give 10%. You're like, whoa.
Yep.
They're going to start thinking, well, I can't give 10%, but and then they dwindle that number down.
Think about that statement, though, and I've heard this before from more people than just you. Think about this statement. I make too much money to tithe. I mean, really?
Partner Miley.
I'm Tim Benjamin.
And this is the Rage Podcast, where today we're going to discuss...
We're taking on the big topic today.
The one thing that no pastor likes to talk about because it can easily come right back on them.
Yep.
What is it? Church tithe.
Money.
Mm-hmm. If you have ever been to a church service, and some churches do it in very interesting ways how they take up the tithe, but you have probably noticed here at Wayne Street, even this Sunday was a good day to notice the significance of the tithe, because now we have a big industrial box that we have you put your tithe in. And we also, me at Walnut Grove, we make it a whole part of the service collecting the tithe. The tithe. We have I get the bronze plates, and I have the ushers come forward, pick them up, and they pass them around, and it gets passed to every person there, whether you have only a penny to your name or millions of dollars sitting in the bank. We are going to pass that plate, and by passing the plate, we are signifying we want your money.
Yes.
Or are we?
Yeah, we here at Wayne Street do it a little differently. We collect offering as people come in. As Parker was saying, we do have the big industrial box, which was a new addition as of last week. Due to some security concerns. So we have that in there, and we do it that way because it's a little less threatening, and it also is a reminder that we're here to focus on God. We're not here to focus on emptying your pockets.
Our finances.
Yeah.
Growing up in the church, Tim, like I know you did, what was tithe like? And you don't have to get as personal as maybe I am, but in your family life growing up, what was the tithe?
Giving was always a big deal at our house. I can remember one of my earliest memories is my dad giving us a quarter every week to put in the offering plate. So we were learning from very little about putting money in the little Sunday school offering that would come out. Pass the little plate around, and I put in a quarter. We ended up with like 85 cents from like 27 kids that were there. So tells you we weren't exactly breaking the bank on that one. But for me, what that was teaching me, and I'm so glad my dad did that because it was always a big deal. Here's a quarter, and it was just part of getting ready for Sunday morning. Is here's all this stuff and put it in there, and that was a great learning. Because a quarter, $100 bill when you're that little. I don't know what I didn't know anything was.
Money's money.
Money's money, and but it was teaching me in a very subtle, I guess, way about the importance of giving and supporting the church and what it means to be able to participate in the church by giving your gifts, which is one of the 4 membership vows that we all take.
When I was a kid, we had a different. We started. I don't know how it was in your church, but we had like the pull away from the sanctuary, just like how we do in second service. The kids leave, and my parents would give me whether it was $1 or the spare change they had, and down in the Sunday school room, they made a big to-do about it again. It wasn't as, when you walk in, just drop it in. Looking back on it, it was like, what if you were the one kid that didn't have the quarter, What did you do?
Shun the child.
Shun the child.
Yes.
When we had this little thing of, it was like a little church. It was like a porcelain church, had the little hole in the top, and we'd put our money in, and that was the Sunday school offering
that's
that
what we
the
had
kids
too.
did. Yeah. Now, growing up, even, I'm still pretty young, but I knew tithe was important. However, what I began to notice as I got a little bit older, and especially started working in the church and seeing the difference in tithes and how different people do tithe, I noticed, well, my family's portion that we're giving is not up to par as everyone else. And I began to question. I was like, is this like, are people really giving 10%? Because that's tithe means 10. Okay. So I began to ask these questions. I was like, is it supposed to be 10% of your income, of your net income, and all these things? It's like, in the world we live in anymore, tithe takes a big different shift compared to what it was, obviously, when they were talking about their cattle. So what's your take on that?
Well, the 10% standard comes from the Old Testament story that we're not going to get into here, but it's a biblical standard, and for them, yes, it costs money, and Parker and I firmly admit that. This computer we're speaking on, the lights in this room that thank God are on this week, this table we're sitting at, this room that we're in, this building, our salaries, all that stuff comes from the offerings that are collected. So look, we have to identify that. So it does make Parker and I to be talking about something like this seem a little self-serving, and I guess it is because I like for my paycheck not to bounce. But on the other side of that, though, and this is the part that I think people miss, and I think Parker was kind of getting to this, was tithing is about a practice. It's about a faithfulness. And what I've said in the past, and I continue to say, and I've actually found this bore out in my own life, is that anything in your life, and it doesn't matter what it is, it could be money, it could be time, resources, relationships. If you're not willing to be faithful with it, God has no reason to bless it. And that's what tithing is about. Tithing is a minimum standard of what it means to express faithfulness in what you have been given, the resources you have. Yes, money, but time and talent goes into that, and all these different things. It's about what are you being faithful with. Parker and I hear daily, hourly basis, people are too busy to be involved in stuff, and we hear this constantly. And maybe that's true, but at the same time, how blessed are you by this rat race that you're in? Whatever it is you're doing, when you're not being faithful with it, when you're just scurrying from one encounter to the next. And I feel like finances are the same way. I got to tell you personally, and I don't know how personally you want to get into this, but as far as giving, I've been blessed more in my financial life when I give generously than I am when I don't. Now, I don't want to get into a prosperity gospel because I know that's where that's going. But I can just say, I don't think it's because, well, God's looking at the offerings like, ooh, look, there, Pastor Tim dropped a little bit in this week, so we'll give him a little. I don't think it works that way. Yeah. I think it's a change in attitude of the stuff that I have. And because I'm willing to be faithful with it and say, okay, the church gives me this many resources and I'm going to give some back, that faithfulness makes the rest of my income, makes me be more careful with it. In fact, right before we came over here, literally minutes ago, I was sitting over my office on this very computer we're recording this on, and I was going through my Excel spreadsheet that I keep my own personal finances on. The very first thing that I pay every month, I tithe by the month. Just the way we get paid around here, it's easier for me to do it that way. But that's the first thing that comes out every month. Normally, I pay the tithe or pay what I'm going to give for the next month halfway through the previous month. Okay. Now, do you tithe? Do you just drop money? So here's what I want to understand. Do you just drop money right into the plate, or do you give in a specific manner? I give in a very, very specific manner. Okay, because I do not. I always tell people, and the people at Walnut Grove know this. I don't tithe. I don't drop money into the plate because I feel like that's just not doesn't make sense to me. Okay, maybe there's some people out there that would disagree, but I do not drop money in the plate on a Sunday morning. Like what I do is I make a notice. So there was a kid in my congregation a few weeks ago, maybe or so, who was raising money to go to a DC trip. So I gave to that. I gave to that. And, I also give to several other different community things. And here at Wayne Street, if through the Heifer Project or anything like that, dropping those special, dispersing it in different locations is kind of what I do. I don't just drop it into the plate. But it's hard for me to say, and I struggle with this, to tithe. One, because I would say I don't have a very stable income. Okay, so I do give. I try to give, but I can't say I give out of a routine practice. Yeah. Well, it took me a lot of years to get there, and obviously when you're starting out at your age, and I'm not discounting this, but the idea of giving consistently counts on consistent income. Yeah. Which in your 20s you don't have, or teenage years don't have. So I get that part. So when you say, all right, I brought in $100, I'm going to give this $10 or whatever it is, that's the way you do it. Now, when you're an old man like me, and I can tell you exactly what I made last week, and I know exactly what I'm going to make this week. Yeah. It's a little easier to plan for that. And also, what I do is in fact, we're just getting ready to do this coming Sunday, a couple weeks here in November. Most churches are talking about stewardship, and what we're going to do is you punch in the numbers and decide what you want to give. Now, one of the things about tithing that's very interesting is that's what we give in response to what we have been entrusted with. That's our expression of faithfulness. But I find actually above and beyond that to be where the blessing is. I don't know, again, if we want to get into numbers or anything like that, but I way go on beyond tithe. Even when I'm giving to the church, plus I'm involved, I'm like Parker, I'm involved in every organization here in town, and I give money to all of them as well. So I'm far, far, far beyond 10% that I give just here to Wayne Street. Mm-hmm. And then I give to other organizations here in town. The reason I do that is because God has entrusted me with a very generous salary here from Wayne Street, and I want to be faithful with that. At the same time, I've seen a lot of people who can't seem to live on anything no matter how much you give them, and because they burn through it so quickly. And what I find is, by being responsible with it, and the first thing I do is I invest that in the kingdom, I find the rest of my money, I have a much better understanding of what's happening to it. Whereas if I'm just willy-nilly and just saying, well, I'm gonna go buy this, and I'm gonna go that, I'm gonna go on eBay and buy all these things, and then I think, well, I got 65 cents left over, I'm gonna throw that in the offering plate. I'm not saying that you do that, but when I did it that way back when I was younger, because that's the way I used to do it, what I found is I get to the end of the month and be like, where in God's name did all my money go? But by giving to God first, by prioritizing that, I find that makes me far more responsible with my money throughout the rest of the month. So to me, this expression of faithfulness comes back to selfishness.
And do you know this about how Tim is talking right now? Tim's salary is not going to go up if the tithe goes up.
Correct.
So that's Correct. A good thing I think we should have noticed.
Correct. Yeah. You all can go write some big checks in here, and Pastor Tim's still going to be at where I am now.
That I feel it, but
yeah. But I invest these things because honestly, giving helps us do things like hire Parker. I mean, they're going to have a pastor here, regardless. That's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But we do special things like. We're just in contact with somebody to help us with some of these online things, and you're going to be seeing a little bit of increase in quality here in the Grace Podcast, meaning some quality at all. Yeah. And so you're going to be seeing that. We've got a couple of folks working in the office right now. We got Jess who works here, and Don, and all those things happen through the generosity of the people who are here, and I want to participate in that. Mm-hmm. And by doing that first, it helps make me be very responsible with the rest of my resources. Therefore, when I get to the end of the month, I know where everything went, or most of it. And I'm not going around going, it doesn't seem to matter how much money I have. I can't pay my bills. Yeah. It's because I'm just throwing money at everything I want. I mean, a good example, Susan and I joke about quite a lot. They make these replica lightsabers from Star Wars. And every time we talk about money, I always say, when do I get to have that? Well, I don't have one yet. But it's just kind of a joke that we have about, there's some silly things out there that would be, just really awesome to have, let's be honest. But I don't really need that. I don't really need a replica lightsaber.
Squirt gun or something?
Yeah, the 500, I forgot about that. Parker and I were looking at $500 squirt guns, and Susan put the kibosh on that too. She's such a... Susan? Yeah, just a buzzkill.
But, So I'm going to ask the question. I think this is the question that everyone always has. Mm-hmm. So is it the set standard upon everyone, 10%?
Oh, yes. Okay. Absolutely. And the reason for that is because that's just the tithe. That's not an offering. An offering is beyond that.
Ooh.
So, and again, I'm not saying go take your bank account and dump it into the church. I mean, if you want to do that, we're not going to stop you. But I'm not saying we necessarily need to do that. But at the end of the day, yes, I fully admit I'm the wrong person to talk about this because yes, I am going to benefit from that, personally, and makes my life makes all this gray hair that I have around my ears, a lot less when people are giving. At the end of the day, I want you to give because it does benefit you, because that is exactly what I found in my life. And again, the health and wealth theology is crap. I'm just going to say that right off. I'm not saying you give and your car will never break down because that's the dumbest thing anybody would say. But I will say that it does make, by being generous first with the resources you're given, and this will work beyond the money, you'll find the rest of your stuff you're going to be more responsible with, and you're going to be able to take better care so that when the car does break down, because inevitably I drive a 22-year-old car, they break down, it happens. But, when that happens, you're going to have a little cushion in there to be able to deal with that. And if you don't, come to your local church. There are places that can help with that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, being generous first helps you have perspective on the rest of your finances.
There's several people out there that and this kind of comes, you can see it lay out in Scripture. In the Old Testament, your possessions and belongings were a lot more glorified.
Yeah.
Okay, I would say they were kind of the who was who was based upon the amount of things they owned. All right.
Are you claiming that today is different?
Well, what I'm going to claim is when Christ came, that kind of was flipped upside down a little bit.
Oh, I see what you're going with that.
So a lot of people say, well, if I don't have to technically give 10% of my money if I give 10% of my time, because Christ then kind of changed that whole. It wasn't. Here's how it is. There was we look more at your lifestyle. Okay, are you giving in this way? Are you giving in that way? And now, so I'm not going to discredit the fact that we can give money, we can give time, we can give service, skills, and all those things back to the church. How do you determine 10% of some of those things is a little bit more tricky, but not really in all reality. But that's an argument that a lot of people make that the financial side of it is not necessarily as clear drawn as it was back in the Old Covenant.
Well, and here's the big change that Jesus made between the Old Testament and then the times of the New Testament. The thing that Jesus changed is he took hell out of the equation. Okay, so what he did is he said, all right, here's God's grace. I'm an instrument of God's grace. I'm the manifestation of God's grace. I'm going to speak grace to all of you, and then I'm going to demonstrate grace on Easter Sunday. Okay, so that's what he did. However, he also showed you the path to blessing, which is not free. If you want to be blessed, you got to be faithful. Okay? Hell may have been taken out of the equation through embracing Christ as your Savior. Okay? Fully admit, 100% behind that idea. But the idea is though with everything else in your life, if you want anything more than the eternity, which, I mean, that's pretty good. Let's be honest. But if you want to be blessed with any of that stuff, you got to be faithful with it. You're smirking at me. I don't think
I don't know if it's that I disagree.
Okay.
But
well, God
the more I give, the more good I do, the more blessings I can receive or will receive. Is it can or will?
Potential. I would say can.
Can.
But I would say you can completely shut the door on that by not being faithful with anything. I mean,
I see countless examples of people who are nasty, not good, and don't do right and just with their things.
And you're going to call them blessed?
Well, Tim, they receive quite a bit of blessing.
So now, which one of us is going toward the health and wealth theology?
Well, it's just
No, I admit there are bad people who do good things, and they seem to do well.
There are bad people who get good things.
All right, that's what I meant. Okay, yes, that happens. That's the way of the world, though, because the world rewards bad things, which I don't know if there's any debate on that. But if you want the blessings of the Lord, the peace that passes all understanding, the ability to endure a trial rather than skip it. If you want to be able to come up against adversity in your life, if you want to be able to be a part of building the kingdom, if you want to be a part of building up a community, there has to be some faithfulness in that. Because if you want your grandchildren or your children or your spouse or you to have a community to turn to when you need help, then you're going to have to be part of building that community. And that takes investment, and that requires faithfulness. So that's what I'm saying. If you want these things to be there for you when you need them, then you need to reciprocate that. You need to be able to invest those things, invest those resources in such a way that you can build the structures that you're going to want when you want them. Because look, you this week, you may not need the services of a funeral. I hope everybody in your family's fine. I hope. But somebody is going to need that. And in order to provide that, we have to build a community here to do that. So we can have a sanctuary, we can have an organist, we can have a pastor, we can have the funeral home, we can have all these things. Somebody's got to pay into that this week, whether they need it or not, in order to provide those services for the community. So if you want to be blessed during a time of a terrible tragedy, we have to build these structures. They can't just be created at the time you need them and then just set them aside after that. It just doesn't work that way.
Okay, that helps.
Okay,
clarify.
I probably wasn't being clear before.
Because it was just when I that's a leery term how you said it. You made me scared, all right?
Okay.
Because I was like, whoa, now.
Yeah.
But when
I'm not
when
saying give to the church and drive a Ferrari. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not give me all your money and so much good will come to you. Okay, because there's a big group of people out there that believe that.
Oh, yes.
But,
yes, there are. And a lot of them have far bigger channels on YouTube than the Rage Podcast.
Yeah, and all of them have Miracle Spring Water. So
yeah. Or take this fabric and put it on your skin. Peter Popoff. I'd like to pop him.
Yeah, so there's people out there like that.
Yeah.
And they are definitely using
it. And they ain't us.
Yeah, we're not trying, but I just, it's such a tricky subject.
It is.
Because you're going to experience, what if there's some people that don't have any financial understanding whatsoever.
Right.
And you ask them to say, well, if you're going to be faithful to your membership of the church, because again, it's a part of the vows, well, then give 10%. You're like, whoa.
Yep.
They're going to start thinking, well, I can't give 10%, but and then they dwindle that number down.
Think about that statement, though, and I've heard this before from more people than just you. Think about this statement. I make too much money to tithe. I mean, really? I'm just saying, what are you really saying when you say that? Maybe you make too much money. I don't know how to take that. But all I'm saying is those resources were given to you for a reason.
Yeah.
And I will say, financial wealth is a spiritual gift if used properly. And I have seen people do that. In a church I served prior to, so this is nobody from St. Mary's. There was a couple. The guy had a job. His job was he would go through companies' financials. And whenever he'd find a mistake, if the mistake, cost the company money, nothing would happen. But if he found a mistake that made the company money, he got half. This guy was dirty, rotten, filthy, stinking rich. I mean, we're talking rich beyond your wildest dreams. And you know what he'd do? He would go around and write checks for things. The parsonage I lived in got a dishwasher because of him, a new washer and dryer. I could call him up and say, we need this. And he goes, I think for Christmas I'm going to buy my wife a garage for the parsonage. I mean, that's the kind of things he would do. That's the spiritual gift of wealth. And what this person was doing, and I'll tell you, the churches I was serving at the time wouldn't have been able to survive without him. But by doing that, and giving just generously, I mean, he couldn't give generously enough because but it never became a burden to him because he was willing to give all this stuff. He was blessed by that. I can't say the money never went to his head because, again, we're talking like filthy, crazy money. He regulated that by just writing checks for just everything. The guy was incredibly generous. Now, he was probably only giving away 3% of his income, but 3% of his income and 3% of my income were, let's just say, not the same thing.
Yeah.
And but at the end of the day, because he was willing to do that, he was blessing people, and he himself was being blessed with this gift of mathematics. As the guy was a numbers genius, he could look at a whole row of numbers and tell you which one was wrong almost immediately. It was freakish, is what it was. Freakish. But to be able to do this is a great thing, and I would say that man ended up in that position because he was willing to act in that way. And there were, I couldn't even tell you how many organizations around the country that were either completely funded by him or significantly funded by him. And I would say that's a spiritual gift of wealth. Now, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Did he learn that generosity and therefore over time develop that, or did he have that inside of himself? And I don't know. I don't know where that came from, but I do know that he is the one who taught me, because I was kind of where you were until I met this man. He's the one that taught me what it meant to have the spiritual gift of wealth, and it is. And it's a difficult topic to talk about because people get a little strange about it. We can talk about many uncomfortable topics here on the Rage Podcast.
Well, you can't just go up to someone and say,
yeah,
because you say, oh, I'm going to give 10%, and they're like, okay, well, take this 10 times 10, and now I know what you're making. It's just it's people's finances. No one likes to let anyone know.
It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary because I got to tell you, there are a lot of people out there who are struggling financially. And yes, part of that is because the economy is going in the toilet, which we know. But the other part of that is there are a lot of people out there that don't know how to deal with just everyday finances. Yeah. And I feel like money goes through their hand like sand, and it just they don't have any idea what's happening to that. And one of the things that can help you learn responsibility, and I know this doesn't seem self-serving in any way, but giving to the church first helps you then look at the rest of it. And it's a part of being responsible with what you're given. Because anytime, and look, how many football players, come out of college, they're the great star, and they sign this ridiculous contract, and what do they do with that money? They blow it. Lottery winners, how many of them go bankrupt because they don't know how to be responsible with that money? And they just burn right through it. And that's because finances can do that to you. They can cause you to go off the deep end if you don't know how to deal with them.
So Tim's being the guy that's all about the money, but I want to reiterate one thing, just some of the problems that we see in ministry, especially in the current day and age. Give more, and I'm not talking money. I'm talking time, service, and skills. There are so many people in our congregation that I know are very talented people and can do very impressive things, but the last thing they will think about is giving their time and skill to the church.
Presence, gifts, service. Those are the membership vows.
And just how much, yes, money is important, because money helps a lot of those categories of covering skills and time and all those things around here. Yes, incredibly important. All right, don't get me wrong, but just give some time and effort maybe back into the kingdom. Because again, if you're going to invest all this money but then give no effort in the uses of it, well, then that's I'm going to say waste.
Well, because the other thing is you show up for worship on Sunday morning. How many times have you prayed for the musicians or me, or for the Parker at Walnut Grove, or the guy running the sound? How much time do you spend in prayer for all this? I mean, yes, there are investments of all these things. And again, you should never expect to be blessed by something you're not going to be responsible with, whether it be your time, your talent, your resources, whatever.
It doesn't make sense if you're going to take on the aspect of tithe or giving in general. All right, giving any monetary donation to the church. It doesn't make sense to give that and then not take part in your gift.
Exactly.
It has been years. Wayne Street is going to be 200 years old not this January, but 2024. Sorry. Yes, 2024. We're going to be 200 years old.
I didn't know that.
That's about another year off, okay? But anyways, that's 200 years of people that have tithed and gave to this church. It does not make any sense for you to continue to flood in monetary donations and not take part in the great things that happen here, such as small groups, such as worship nights like last Sunday, such as letting your kids get a Christian understanding from Jess and Don and youth group and all of those things, and the stuff we go out and do in the community.
And plus the army of announcements we go through every Sunday morning.
I mean, the blessing box, for crying out loud.
Operation Christmas Child.
Operation Christmas, all those things that we get to do here. Don't just say, oh, well, I gave this much, so I guess I'm off the hook, but take part in it. That is the biggest confusion I see.
And that leads to blessing.
And
not financial, material blessing, but there are many, many kinds of blessing.
That come from the institution you're funding. I mean, that's how that works.
With your prayers, presence, gifts, and service.
Yep.
Well, thank you all for joining us for the Raise Podcast. We appreciate you being here for this conversation. Talking about money, it's the uncomfortable thing.
Tim's talking about money.
Because I have to. But at the end of the day, we can't fund anything. I mean, it's the lifeblood of how things work in the world.
Can't do what we do without it.
So thank you for your generosity. For all of you who are joining us here on the Raid Podcast, we certainly appreciate your investment in us. And we hope you all have a great week. And remember, if you want to be blessed, be responsible with it.